You are here with By the Cover. Today we're going to be reviewing Never Flinch by Stephen King. The genre for this one is crime fiction. The book was 439 pages and it took me 8 days to read. I would rate this book a 4 out of 10. This review will contain quite a few spoilers, so if you do not want to hear those, click off now. First, the summary of the book. In Buckeye City, Detective Izzy Janes receives a chilling letter from a killer threatening to kill 13 innocents and 1 guilty in an act of atonement for an unjust death. As the investigation progresses, the threat becomes real, prompting Izzy to enlist Holly Gibney's help. Simultaneously, feminist activist Kate McKay embarks on a controversial lecture tour, drawing both support and opposition. A stalker disrupts her events, escalating the danger. Holly is hired as Kate's bodyguard, navigating the challenges of protecting a headstrong client while facing a determined adversary. The story leans heavily on themes of women empowerment, abortion, and addiction. It focuses on hot-button topics of our current times, so if those are things you do not want to read about in your fiction, go ahead and skip this one. First of all, my likes with the book. I liked the chemistry between Izzy and Holly when they were together. Unfortunately, there was not a lot of that. The address book conflict with Trig was a good time. I liked that Jerome had more involvement in this book. And at the very, very end, about the last paragraph, it hinted at a supernatural tie-in. The entire rest of the book did not have that focus, and it was a straight-up crime thriller. As far as what I was indifferent about, I think both of the antagonists in this book are just okay. Trig's storyline and his arc started out fairly strong. I think it ended really strong, and the reason it ended strong is because he continuously devolves mentally. And so the ending is more interesting than the entire midsection of this book. After you get acquainted with him and what he's doing, all he's doing is executing what he has told you he is going to be doing. And so you're just kind of waiting for him to get the actions done the entire middle of the book. At first it's interesting, then it loses pretty much all steam through the middle of the book. The secondary antagonist is Chris or Chrissy. I didn't find him all that compelling. I did find his arc more compelling towards the end of the story than the beginning or middle sections. I didn't find either antagonist great, and I didn't find either one of them horrible. As far as my dislikes in this book, first off, you kind of have problems that are inherent in the larger narrative, and that is that every main character that's in this book is going to survive. You know they're not going to die. They have plot armor. There's really no risk with them being in the story, and you don't feel the tension of earlier books in the Holly Gibney series. There is very little character growth in this book. The book seems to be written less around the story and more around the themes of the book. It just seems like maybe King thought of a bunch of themes that he wanted to explore and then built a story around those themes. But I think my main problem with this book is it's an ending in search of a book. The various arcs in this book, and there were quite a few, they're just all pretty weak. First of all, the entire arc of Holly being a bodyguard was very weak. I wasn't really interested in that, nor did I care. It didn't really affect the story too much because she just magically solves things in her head while she's doing bodyguard work. And then she corresponds with the people that are actually working the case to give them little hints, which they take, and eventually everything gets figured out at the end. Izzy, I was really looking forward to her character being around Holly and kind of the chemistry between them, but they did so little of that. They did a little bit of it at the beginning of the book. Then Izzy kind of gets delegated to doing a whole lot of interviews, which I'm not a fan of. Then she has an arc with a baseball game that she's playing. And none of that was really interesting either, so I didn't feel like Izzy really developed as a character, and I didn't like what she did in the book, aside from the time that she was around Holly. Sometimes characters are better together, and that's what I think the case is here. I've never really found Izzy all that interesting by herself. Barbara again reprises a very large role in this book, pretty much plays the same part that she always plays. And that is, she can do no wrong. She's brilliant at everything she does. In this instance, it's not her developing her poetry. She's already a developed poet. She has a book out, Here she's working as a roadie for Sister Bessie at first, and then Sister Bessie convinces her to sing in her band. All of that just does not interest me. I'm here to read a crime book. I don't want to spend the majority of the book talking about moving equipment or singing or being very complimentary back and forth to be in awe of someone's talents of singing or poetry or whatever. None of that interests me. I don't care. Barbara's arc I didn't find all that interesting. I did think it was more interesting than the poetry arc in Holly, but it still wasn't great. Jerome is in this book more, but he's relegated to being uninspired most of the time, assisting Holly and then being on the loving Barbara train and supporting her. Jerome didn't do much in this book. He assisted a little, and he does have a scene at the end where he helps save some people, which I didn't enjoy, but I think I would have liked to have seen his character have more of a role in this book. And the last arc for the protagonists is the Katie and Corey arc, and that's a self-involved, obnoxious author who has a huge fan base, and she goes on a tour to promote her ideology, way of thinking, and Corey is her assistant. Overall, there just wasn't a whole lot happening in this book that was super interesting. Kind of going back to the tension thing, this book tells you who these antagonists are from the start and what their plans are. And while that does evolve a little and there's a little bit of surprise towards the end of the book, it pretty much kills all tension and you already know who they are, so you're just waiting the entire 440 pages for the protagonist to catch up and understand what's going on, which is boring. King also continues to repeat himself a lot in this book over and over and over and over, and it gets just as old here as it does every other time he does it. Lastly, the smallest thing, but I'm going to point it out, COVID references. Yes, there were less of them, but I'm just going to cite them because I started recording them at the beginning of the book. Page 11, page 21, page 47, page 48, page 89. I quit recording him at that point. I don't think that it was mentioned a lot past that point. I get it, Holly was affected by it, but we don't need to go in and continue to harp on this over and over and over. It's annoying. Overall, I just did not connect with this book. This is all that is going to be done with Holly Gibney and Jerome, Barbara, whoever. Going forward, I really don't care to read any more Holly Gibney books. I think the train's about run its course. Unless King comes up with a really compelling antagonist, I'm just really not interested in any future stories of this nature. I do like the characters, but if they're not going to be doing anything interesting, they're not going to be growing, then I really don't have any interest in spending my time continuing to read about it. I think the first 100 pages were pretty decent, if not good, and the last 100 pages really picked it up. I still didn't think the ending was anything super outstanding. It just got a lot more exciting than the rest of the book. Overall, the ending was my favorite part of the book. So that's about it. We'll catch you later.